just FF.
No worries.
Where does when I download a bot, where does it go?
Yeah. Um, you can probably just play it in the client itself, like the League client. Um, it
Oh, and
might
just
be.
share my screen.
Yeah, that would be probably the easiest. Yeah.
All right, no problem.
Let's see.
I think this game was from last night.
Cool. Yeah, it's playing. Um, Sweet. So before we start, if you don't mind pausing, yeah, awesome. Can you click on your character really quick? You're playing Yasuo, right? Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, why don't you walk me through just like, you've gotten through the lobby, you're starting a game. What are some things that you're like thinking about at this moment?
Usually when I start, I'm trying to main Yasuo and Akali. Usually when I start
Yeah.
Yasuo, I immediately go Doran's Blade, Health Pot, and the Yellow Ward.
Okay.
Then from there, I'll walk right here. If whatever red side's on, I'll try and ward the Raptors on red side at the
Uh-huh.
start of the game.
Okay.
And then once that happens, unless like my team signals for an invade, if they want help, I'll go help them.
Yeah.
That's rare though. In my ELO, they won't usually signal for an invade. They'll usually just stay here.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay.
Uh, so after that, I'll just immediately just start trying to CS.
Mhm. Cool.
That's about it. That's like my early game.
Yeah, cool. No, that gives me a good perspective. How long have you been playing League? I'm just curious.
I played for like a month in high school. A friend got me into it. This is like fucking 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't really know. I didn't really play. I just played for fun. I didn't know what I was doing at all.
Yeah.
And then around 2020, I played for a couple months during COVID because like a bunch
Okay.
of Discord friends are like, "Yeah, we should just play, just to have fun." And now I'm playing it more seriously because
Sure.
I like the lore of League, and if a game has really good lore, I'm really into it. So League's lore is fucking top tier to me.
Sure.
That's why I want to get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah. For
So
sure. And you're trying to main Yasuo and Akali, right? So you're learning mid lane. That's basically where we're at. Okay. Cool. So, um, so what I meant when I first started the video was that micro versus macro, right? So those are two pretty important concepts in League of Legends. Basically, micro is things around like how do you manipulate your character around the map, right? So, how do you manipulate your champion? So, things like how exactly are you managing the wave? Are you creating opportunities for your jungler to gank? When are you creating pressure? How are you like tethering against your opponent? Tempo, like there's a ton of terms that I'm throwing at you right now, but we can go into those, over time. And then macro is around things like, okay, where is the enemy jungler? When is the next objective? What is my plan for the next 2-3 minutes around the map? Should I roam? Things like that. Um, so a lot of that will affect like your overall game decision making. So one of the things that I really like to start with, especially for like newer players, is is around the idea of like, okay, let's minimize how many options we have, and let's try to get really good at like controlling my character. Realizing what my immediate objectives are, and then you can start to make some of those more complicated decisions. Does that make sense, like as a framework?
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably a lot. You probably don't know what a lot of them mean, but that's totally fine. So the first thing I want to always talk about is like you've chosen Yasuo. What are your runes at this point?
Think I'm running Lethal
Uh
Tempo,
huh. I think you can click the
Triumph.
little arrow on your character. Yeah, that one right
Right
there.
here.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. So,
Lethal, Triumph, Clarity, Last Stand, Bone
mm-hmm.
Plating, Overgrowth, and then
Yeah,
it kind of that. Yeah,
yeah. So, do you mind me asking why you chose those?
because that's what U.GG told me to go.
Yeah, that's not a bad starting point, you know. There's a lot of resources out there, there's a lot of information out there, so that's great. Um so I would urge you to start toying with those a little bit because what's really helpful is like optimizing your runes for the matchup that you're about to get into. So for example, right? You're about to play against a Yone. And do you know what Yone does? Like are you familiar with his abilities?
Yeah, I like when I'm at like normal games, I'll play with Yone sometimes. I
Yeah, nice.
know his R is the long slash, the
Mhm.
his E he tethers off.
Yeah.
The W is a shield if it hits you, and then it's
Mhm.
the Q is like Yasuo's Q.
Yep. Yeah. So if you know the matchup, you can kind of tweak your runes to like optimize how you play matchup, and that we can get into that later. But I'm just trying to like emphasize that like as you're learning, you gotta like tweak all those little things and see how it feels, and then you can really start to understand like the champion. So, anyways, let's press play and let's get into the game. Let's see.
Should I just forward this to like the main?
Um, No, the thing about League is actually the game starts right now, right? So where your teammates go is really important. Where you guys get vision, you know, thinking about the level one, for example, like this is what elo is this? I'm just curious.
Bronze
Okay,
Elo.
okay, yeah. So there's probably not too much, but in like higher elos, for example, the game starts now, right? So like if you think about the other team, Talia, really strong level one. Nautilus, crazy strong level one. Shen, crazy strong level one. You know, so they would think about like screwing your jungle's pattern or getting vision on
Oh
your
right,
jungler.
I didn't go against the Yone this game. I went against Shen.
Oh, Shen. Okay, so they swapped. Okay, I see. Okay, that's fine. In that case, did you know you were gonna go against the Shen before you got into the game, or was that kind of a surprise?
That was I thought I was going against Yone,
Okay.
even though I probably wouldn't have done any better against the Yone. But I didn't know what Shen. I had no idea what Shen does.
Okay,
I
I
know
see.
the sword is like the main part of his kit, but I have no idea how it works.
Okay, well, if you want to pause, I can explain that really quickly too. Just share some of my knowledge. So, Shen as a champ. So, when you think about champions, they're usually part of a class, right? So, like, Shen is a bruiser class. Yasuo is kind of that in between. He's not quite a bruiser, he's not quite a mage, he's kind of a melee fighter. Kind of like an Aurelia that you have below you. So bruisers are really good at like stats. They're really strong in the early game. They want to stand there and fight you. Fighters like Riven, Aurelia, Yasuo, Yone like to outplay. So for example, if you stand there and fight a Shen in the early game, chances are he's gonna beat you, just based on like the class of champion that they're in. What does he do? So Shen, his sword is important. Yeah. So knowing where that sword is, when Shen presses Q, he pulls that sword towards himself, and if it passes through you, you get slowed. The other thing it does is it makes his next autos super strong. So it adds extra damage to his autos. So you'll probably see that animation. And when he does that, you likely don't want to fight him because the other thing that Shen does that's really strong against Yasuo is he can block auto attacks. So when he presses his W, you can't actually auto him at all. He'll take zero damage. And
I
Yasuo's
didn't even know
damage
that.
is all in his auto attack, right? Yasuo is an auto attacker. So yeah,
Hmm.
so that probably you probably didn't know that. So the other thing, the third ability, the one that you're probably familiar with, is his taunt. So his E is a dash that taunts you, which means it forces you to auto attack Shen. So the Shen combo is E, W, and Q. Because once you're taunted, you can't trade him. He slows you, and he gets really strong attacks against you. So that's kind of Shen in a nutshell. Um, the first thing I always urge my students to think about is how they want to like play out the lane, for instance. So now that you know a little bit about Shen, next time you'll probably know a little bit better about how to
I
play
was
against it.
actually
Yeah.
really confused as to why he was winning last night because I
Yeah.
swore I was beating him. I think I got the first kill on him, and then after that, it just went all downhill.
Got
I
it.
wasn't doing any damage to him.
Got it. The the how do I say this? So the other thing I wanted to mention, when you think about your champion, right, Yasuo, he's not really kill dependent. You know what I mean? So like League of Legends probably sucks everyone in because it's like the Super Smash Bros, right? You want to kill your opponent. Everyone wants to kill their opponent. But the good thing,
Right.
the interesting thing is Yasuo scales like a madman. So the important thing is like understanding whether you need to play for kills or you don't need to play for kills. So yeah. So anyways, we can get into that later. But anyways, let's press play. And if you don't mind, can we do it at half speed?
How I change the speed? Oh,
Just press the minus other way. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, there you go. There
half
you go.
speed.
Yep. So I guess you didn't notice that he was doing that. That's okay.
No, I did not.
No worries. So when he does that, if you want to pause really quickly, I do want to share all these tidbits. When he walks up to you level 1 and autos you like that, he's taking all of your minion damage right now, right? Because he hit you
Hmm.
with an auto attack. So the thing about Yasuo is your Q, your Q ability is not a targeted ability. So what that means is when he's autoing you and you Q him, he will take minion damage, he takes your Q damage, and you just walk away. You win the trade. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that does make sense.
Yeah. You don't need to extend the trade at that point unless he keeps walking into your minions, then you can auto back. Anyways, let's keep playing. Okay. Can we pause for a second?
Hmm.
Sweet. So, as you're playing mid lane, one of the most important things to think about is your jungle matchup, actually. And I'll tell you why it's important, right? So, for junglers, as they're playing the game, they're 100% going to cross mid lane because their jungle is split by mid lane, right? So they're always going to
Hmm.
be around mid. You kind of have to assume that. The important thing I want you to think about is what kind of jungler do I have? Um, does that question make sense? Or I can explain that. Are you familiar with like types of junglers?
I actually am. Before mid lane, I
Yeah.
think like the I used to play a lot of jungle. Like
Mm-hmm.
that I had one game actually last night where I was forced to play jungle. I ended up winning that game. It was with Rammus.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Rammus is uh, is a ganking jungler, right? So he likes to come. He doesn't farm very well. He likes to
No,
gank.
he doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But Talia can do both, right? She's pretty strong at farming. She's also pretty strong at ganking. She actually does a shit ton of damage. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, right now in your lane state, when you threw that last Q, I want you to consider what you're hitting with that tornado. Because now what's going to happen is your lane's going to push into Shen. Because you hit both the minions and you hit Shen. I'm not saying it's bad. I just want you to consider that your lane's going to start pushing into Shen. So, two things are going to happen. One, your jungler is going to be able to hover you, but he won't be able to gank for you because you're probably going to be closer to Shen's tower. However,
Hmm.
Talia can gank you at that time. So always like thinking about, okay, in the next like minute, I could be vulnerable to a jungle gank. So I have to figure out what to do. So anyways, press play and we can see how it plays out. Does that make sense? Was that helpful to hear?
No, no, yeah, no, that does make sense.
Yeah. So right there when Shen did Q, his autos are super strong. You saw that? Yeah.
Mm. When it glows like that, right?
Yeah. But The other thing about that trade is when he's hitting you like that, he's taking minion damage. So auto back, auto back, auto back. Because you're pushing. Did that make sense? Sorry, if you want to go back and back to your character, you want to
How
double
do
click
I?
Yasuo. Yeah,
Does it lock on me now?
yeah, it locks on you now. Yeah. So when he
Okay.
walked up, right, a few seconds ago, um, just pause it for a moment. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so press play. Now that's a good spot. So he walks up past the minions when your lane is pushing, right here. I would fight the shit out of him after his Q wears off. So if you back up a little bit, if you keep backing up, just press play. I'm trying to explain a little micro here. So you do the right thing. You back up. Now is when you do damage to him because his Q has worn off and your lane is pushing. So again, he'll take all of that extra damage. It's kind of it's a nuance and it takes some practice, but it's like being really quick to respond to the lane state is something that you want to practice as Yasuo for sure. Did that make
All right.
sense? Was that
Yeah,
helpful?
no. Yes,
Yeah.
very. I wouldn't. I would have just backed off completely. I wouldn't have gone to fight him.
Yeah. Yeah, since you're pushing the lane, I would fight there. And he's on cooldown. He already used his Q. Anyways, there's one more important thing. Sorry, I don't want I don't want to try to throw too much at one time, but it's
No,
another.
no. That's fine.
Yeah. The other super important thing right now is tracking your experience. So this is a much harder micro. So in mid lane, you hit various levels at precise times. What that means is you've killed the first wave. First wave's dead. This is the second wave. When the first melee minion on the second wave dies, you hit level 2. Okay? So when you see that minion on the right in the front that's the lowest, when that minion dies, because that's probably going to die first, you'll hit level 2. And the reason you hit level 2 first is because your lane is pushing. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So press play. I think you're gonna hit level 2. I'm pretty sure you're gonna hit level 2 first, and then you should level up your E and trade him. There you go. Boom. Level 2. Trade him. Fight him. Push him off the wave. That's your opportunity.
I don't
More
fight him. I just go
opportunities to
back
fight
there.
him. All this time, I would just fight him because you're a level up. But yeah. Anyways, so okay. So that's his taunt.
The shield when he
The
did the
one
shield
where
thing.
he dashed into you, if you go back a few
Oh,
seconds.
okay.
Yeah, that's his
I
taunt,
see.
and then he queued. Okay. Yeah, if you want to hover that. Okay.
Oh, I'll back up. No. Stay on me. Stay on me.
Yeah. So, like,
Okay.
that's his
That's his
taunt.
taunt.
There you go. When he dashes into you, it forces you to auto him. So, yeah. Okay. So now your wave is crashing, right? Now is one of the most important times to pause and think about the jungler. So pause for a moment. When
Wait. Can
you're
you give me? I gotta take a piss. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it. Okay, so we were talking about the lane state, right? So I mentioned that your lane was pushing. Here's another fun tidbit. So every 3 waves, right? Every third wave is a cannon minion wave. Do you know what that means?
The big cannon
Yeah,
comes. Yeah.
exactly. When that happens, it means your wave is going to bounce. So let me explain. So right now you pushed in the first 2 waves, right? It's at his tower. What that means is if you let that wave die just to the tower, that cannon wave is actually going to push back into you. And you can use that as your advantage because 2 things happen. One, right now you've pushed in, so you know that you're open to a gank. You could get ganked right now in a game because you're pretty overextended. The only reason, Talia probably doesn't gank you is because she started blue side. The other thing is your jungler probably can't help you because he's really far away. So when you're in this lane state, one thing I recommend doing, and you mentioned it in the beginning, is actually warding their raptors, because chances are the jungler wants to clear their raptors and then clear red, or they're gonna pass through that area to go clear red. So if you want to move your screen, just scroll up a little bit on the map, a little to the left. Yeah, so the jungler is going to go to their red, right? So a really valuable thing to do is if you scroll left a little bit and down, left and down, just a tiny bit down. Yeah, perfect. So you, as a mid laner, when you're overextended, want to put a ward down right there. I wish I could click on the screen somehow. I don't think I can. Anyways, you see where the river meets the map? Like there's a ramp there. Am
What
I
happened?
making sense?
I didn't hear you. Sorry. What happened?
Oh, no worries. Do you see where like the river meets the map on that ramp up towards their
Yeah,
jungle?
right here. God.
I
Yeah,
can't
right
see your
here.
mouse for some reason. That's weird. Okay. Anyways, so if you go up a little bit, I would ward that
Uh,
entrance. Essentially, is what I'm
this right
saying.
here.
I don't know why I can't see your mouse. That's kind of weird. Um,
It's like the ramp going up, right?
exactly. So that ramp, if you ward that ramp, you'll see Talia coming. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're in a pushed state, like you are right now, like you're really far up, you're vulnerable to a gank, so you want to ward where the jungler might come from. Okay.
Okay.
So the other thing that does is there are junglers in the game that likes to invade, right? So for example, if Talia was playing like a Graves, Graves would probably invade your Rammus, right? And if you ward that ramp, you'll see him come down.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's useful information. Um, okay, so let's go back to your character, and then you can press play. This is about to be a cannon wave. If you let it just push back, it would bounce back towards you. Because now, I think even you know, because you're standing still, you can't really walk up to this safely, right? It's kind of risky.
I think I do. I'm not sure if I did anyway or.
Well, you got taunted. That's one part. Oh, you're kind of doing the right thing at this point. I mean, you just want a last hit. You don't want to shove the wave. You've taken a lot of damage from trades, but you mostly want to stand back and just kind of last hit. Pause if you don't mind pausing for a second. So when you hit level 3, you put a point in your W. Do you mind me asking why you did that here? Do you know?
Point. To get all three of my abilities.
Yeah, so generally that's not a bad idea. Like if you're playing against a mage or like an AD carry, definitely do that. In this case though, you're playing against a
It's
melee
against the
bruiser.
Shen. You're right, and
Exactly.
he doesn't have
Yeah.
any abilities that
Right.
would hit me. It's
Right.
like yeah.
Yeah. So you could have like put a point in Q, maybe put a point in E. Anyways, those are just little things to think about.
I actually, yeah. You know what? I don't really think about that stuff. I just want to get all three of my abilities.
Yeah, and it's not a bad idea, but you always want to consider the matchup a little bit. So yeah, so let's press play. Nice. He missed his taunt. His Q's on cooldown. So right now is actually a good opportunity to get back some damage on that trade. Yeah. Okay, you want to pause for a second? Cool. So, what's happening right now? Like, what? If you're playing a game, what are you doing right now? What are you thinking right
I
now?
think I'm just farming. This is
Yeah,
basically I'm just farming, just going for CS.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Um, I want to introduce something here, and it's probably just going to complicate the thought process. But so, do you know anything about jungle timers?
Um, every 5 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 3 minutes for the red
Mm-hmm.
and blue. I think it's 2 minutes for Grom and Krugs and Wolves.
I think you're pretty close. But actually, one thing I was gonna say was that you don't have to worry about the camps themselves. You don't have to worry about the raptors and the wolves and stuff. What I was gonna say is that in the next 20 seconds, scuttle spawns, both of the scuttles, right? Um, so what that means is like there's probably gonna be a fight around one of the scuttles because both your junglers are pathing that way. So in games, one thing you want to consider is that 3:30 at 3:30, you want to figure out where your lane is, right? So like in the next 20 seconds, would I be able to go help my jungler, is a decision that you probably want to think about. So what I would do here if I was you is I would actually spend some of my cooldowns and I would trim this wave, meaning I would kill as many minions as I can so that I'm
Do a hard
ready.
push.
Huh?
A hard push, like
Kind of like a hard push, yeah. But less because I'm concerned about the wave, more because I kind of want to support my jungler right now. I don't know. I'm not saying that Rammus will definitely go to the scuttle. What I'm saying is, like, in a game that your jungler does want to go to scuttle, you want to enable him to be able to do so. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah. So if he was good, and chances are good is all relative, right? But anyways, if he wanted to go to scuttle at 3:30, he'll look over and say, "Hey, my mid lane can help me. I'm gonna go do this scuttle."
Right.
Anyways, that's just something to consider. And you can ping and tell him like, "Hey, I'm coming to scuttle," for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's press play. I know it's a lot, but I'm hoping it's like helpful knowledge to like have and think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
I don't know why I did that.
It's all good. Those are those micro things that take a lot of practice and like getting comfortable with your champion. Because the other thing I want to emphasize is actually if you pause, um, do you mind hitting the little I at the bottom of yeah, right there? And then can you hit scoreboard? Yeah, let's close this out. Okay. So one thing I want to talk about is that when Shen taunts you like that, right? Um, that's it. He's done. So, for example, um, his taunt has a really long cooldown. So after he's done with his combo, you're actually kind of free to do whatever you want. And that's a tough concept to grasp because you probably lost a lot of HP. And it's scary because you're like, oh shit, he's probably going to kill me. But two things to
hmm
think about is that one, he doesn't have Ignite. So not really. He doesn't really have anything else. He also used his taunt. So, he's kind of vulnerable right now. I'm not saying this is when you all in. What I'm saying is right now you're free to hit him for some damage. Um, Not too hard because you don't want to take minion aggro. These are all nuances, and this is what mid lane is about. It's all about like those little trades. It's like little windows, because the other times you're gonna be against a mage, and a mage has range, right? And those mages
Hmm.
look for those little windows, which is probably why you take a lot of pokes sometimes as a melee champ. So lots,
I struggle against a lot of mages too. Like Ari
yeah,
could beat me.
yeah,
Bex could definitely sauce me, and he could sauce me.
yeah. It's challenging. Learning to play that melee into range matchup is pretty hard, and it takes some
I
practice.
think I have more of a problem
Hmm.
with. I know, like, if I go against a Pantheon mid, I'm pretty much. I know that the game's lost for me. So
yeah,
I'll
we
always ban Pantheon.
yeah, we could definitely talk about some of those harder matchups because there are ways to play around it, right? You're not just like cocked since the beginning. It's hard, but there are options, and I can at some point probably go into those if you want. But yeah,
That would be cool.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna stop here right now. I know we've gotten through like half an hour of material. I don't want to like overload you. Was this
No, that's
helpful?
fine.
Like, what are your
Yeah,
what are your
no,
thoughts?
actually, yeah. Like, I would never know how